bitten on a research station by a small rattlesnake, and I had to have the antivenom in the night, but unfortunately the fridge didn't work because it was run off a generator, and the antivenom was cold chain broken. So no doctor would generally administer it because it's been above the temperature it should be, quite a bit above I think, and I had to have the antivenom because the swelling was right up my arm, and we didn't have a doctor. I discussed it with the nurse. She put up a drip, she put the antivenom into the drip, started the infusion, and within 2 minutes of me having the start of the antivenom, I went blind. Not black blind, white blind. Think of a television with no aerial, just white noise. I'd lost my vision, and I don't know if it's for 10 minutes, 10 days or forever. And I'm in the jungle, blind, with snake venom going through my body, and the antivenom not doing me a lot of good either. So she stopped the antivenom, and then she had to give me adrenaline to combat the reaction that I'd had, and then she could start the antivenom again, because I still need it, but at a slower infusion. And I was able to have that antivenom. And then we're so used to these phones, there it is. We're so used to these. Sat phones, mobile phones, cell phones, the internet, everything's immediate. If you want to talk to somebody back in China, you could contact them now, this very minute, and speak to them in real time. But in the 1980s, couldn't do that. I was on a research station in the jungle, 6 hours from the nearest town, on a good day, by truck. Right. We had shortwave radios, not dissimilar to the ones used in World War II for military to communicate between each other. That radio ran off a car battery, which drained quickly. We would do 2 radio checks. We would do a radio check in the morning at 6 o'clock. We'd do a radio check in the evening, in the afternoon at 6 o'clock. Those radio checks would last about 10 minutes. And you would say, right, we've run out of beer, can you send some on the next supply run? Or they would say, we're sending you 2 entomologists, can you get a room on the station ready? This was with Boa Vista in the town, 6 hours away. So I got bitten at 6:30 in the afternoon. 20 minutes after the radio had been turned off, 7.5 hours before it'd be turned back on again. We could turn ours on, but there'd be nobody at the other end. They wouldn't know in Boa Vista to turn the radio on until 6 o'clock in the morning. So I had to survive the night. So I had to have that antivenom. When they did come online at 6 o'clock the following morning, the radio message went out that I'd been bitten. They needed to set up a Casevac. So they started to set that in motion. And eventually by 8 o'clock, it was all set up. So I was carried out of the room I was in, and we only had one vehicle on the island. This was an island in the river, big river that branches and comes together and creates this big island, 100,000 hectares. We're at a research centre at the one end of it, and that's an old Brazilian Jeep called a Jeg. And while they're setting up the medevac, some of the guys on the station had got a set of tools, and they'd taken all the seats, except the driver's seat, out of the Jeg, and they'd put a mattress in. So then, when it was ready to go, I was carried out and put on the mattress. They drove down the causeway 2 kilometres to the river. There was an Amerindian boat there, a dugout canoe. They put me into the canoe. The Amerindians paddled me across the river to the other side. There was a Banderanchi Land Cruiser sitting waiting for me. They picked me up, they put me in the Banderanchi. They drove me up to a fazenda, a ranch, and then we heard the aircraft coming. And the aircraft had been dispatched. What had taken the time was they'd taken all the seats out of it, except the pilot and one of our people who knew where the research station was. All the seats, little Cessna type aircraft, and they'd got a mattress in there. And when that arrived, they picked me up, they put me on the mattress, and the plane took off. And it flew to Boa Vista. I was hoping to have a look at what the area looked like from the sky, but I was reacting again to the antivenom. I was having hives, itching all over, terrible. And so I was given more adrenaline, and I was out. I woke up when we arrived in Boa Vista. When I got there, I staggered down the steps of the aircraft, and they go, no, don't walk. And they brought this ambulance. It was an estate car ambulance. It could have belonged to the Addams family. It was like one of these old American Cadillacs. If it had been sprayed black, it would have made a very good hearse. But it was sprayed white, so it was an ambulance. And they put me in the back of that. And it's because it's a state car. I'm like that, and the roof's about there. And then this started off for the hospital. And the sirens are like banshees, which are screaming Irish witches. Really, that's when the chill went through me, the sound of that noise. It was a worrying time because this is 1987 when the AIDS epidemic has just started. And in a lot of countries, they reuse needles, they just sterilise them. They don't dispose of them because they've only got so many. And I'd been warned that in Brazil at that time, there was a lot of boil the needles and use them on the next patient. So whatever you end up getting AIDS. So I thought, well, this isn't a good idea. And they've got me onto this ward and everybody was on a drip. And they came to give me injections and to put a drip up. And I don't speak great Portuguese, but I'm thinking, I'm not having this. There's an international language that means go away. And I was standing on my bed with my fists threatening to punch the first person that came near me with anything pointy. And you're not sticking needles in me, thank you, no. And they thought, leave the stupid gringo alone. Let him, and the next day, I managed to get discharged from hospital. And I was out. And 2 days later, I was back on the station. And there was a massive party. All the Brazilians and the British and the Americans and the Colombians, we all had this massive party. And there was loads of alcohol, except my Brazilian girlfriend would not let me have any. Because she said I was a patient and I mustn't drink. So I couldn't.
虽然奥谢教授多次以身犯险，但他的目的其实是为了让世人尊重这些与我们不同的生物。但消除偏见是个长期战斗，因此他在告别荧幕后撰写了这本《蛇类博物馆》及众多科普读物。他深知，只有让更多人认识他们、了解他们，我们才可以消除恐惧，创造一个人蛇共存的世界。所以在蛇类博物馆中，你可以查到更多关于这几种致命毒蛇的信息，还可以通过下方的相近物种认识与它们相关的其他蛇类，进一步拓展你的知识面。但能编写这样一本巨著的背后，一定不只有危险的故事。那么，奥谢教授最喜欢的蛇类又是什么呢？它们之间又发生过什么故事呢？
My favourite snake is the king cobra. It is not because it's the biggest venomous snake in the world. That isn't the reason. The reason is anybody who has worked with king cobras will tell you there is something going on behind those eyes. I kept a king cobra when I was at the safari park. I grew up to a 10-foot female. She was a great animal to work with. She would recognise us. King cobras do appear to have some intelligence. And there were two members of staff, myself and another member of staff, who would go into her enclosure. She knew us, let her know we were coming, and we'd go in and she'd just watch. If there was a new member of staff with us, she'd be watching them because she didn't recognise them. When we needed to take her out, I'd take her out on the floor in the venomous handling room. She'd sit there and hood. They would do the work in her enclosure. Then I'd turn around and she'd go back in herself. She was amazing. And I made a film about king cobras when I made O'Shea's Big Adventure. And I caught a female king cobra. We were going to test an idea. Big male king cobras are said to growl, a deep-throated growl. They also, when they want to threaten, will show one fang, just show a fang, which suggests that they're thinking about what they're doing. But what's this growl for? We don't know. Well, we got recordings of a male growling. And I had Professor Bruce Young, who's done a lot of work in this area, from the United States, with me on the film. And we caught this female king cobra and we built a big enclosure.